Hey guys, okay, so in this video I'm going to just quickly show you a way to remove elements from the video if you want to take something out. So I've got this video clip, I'm going to drop it in and you'll see it's a shot that's fades in from black, fades out to black, but it's basically a shot of a car driving down a road. In fact, if I just turn that off for a second, there you go, it'll stop dropping quality as we're moving along. And what we're going to do is we're just going to cut that car out. Now the tool we're going to use for this is called a content fill tool, but it's basically one that exists in other software like Photoshop. So if you were to say draw a shape around an object and cut it out in Photoshop, so rather than thinking of this as a video, let's think of it as a frame, and we made a hole in that, the software would then kind of look at sort of the surrounding pixels and what's kind of repeating patterns that are going on in the environment and be able to fill in the gap that we've just created. So it's a good way to paint things out. And like I said, other software does it. It's just that, like Photoshop, it's just that in here it's doing it on a frame by frame basis instead. So every frame it's kind of looking along the image. So let's give that a go. Obviously, to make it easier for ourselves, in this case, we're going to get rid of the fade ins and outs. So I'm going to just go to a bit where it's faded in, and I'm going to take this bar that's above our video, which is called the work area bar, and I'm going to just drag that up to there. So take my playhead to a point where it's not fading anymore, and then bring the work area in. Do the same thing at the end. Go to a point where, there we go, before it fades out, and just pull the work, oops, grab that blue bit there and pull the work area in. Now, to be fair, the content aware tool will work fine now because it can be set to work in only the work area, but I'd rather just not have the other bits anyway. So I'm going to right click the work area bar and say trim comp to work area, and now it should be cut to just those sections. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to draw a mask and just cut out the bits we don't want. So I'm going to draw a shape. Now I want to keep it simple. Okay, so I'm just going to go for 4 points because the simpler it is, the easier it is to work with. I know I've just missed a little bit there, but that's okay. I'll fix that in a second. And you see by default what the mask does is it keeps the section that's in the shape and everything else goes. So we can just drop this video clip down. You've got masks if you open that up, and you can actually change the type of mask. So it's set to one that's called add, and we can actually change it to subtract, which cuts it out, which is what we're going to want to do at the end. We need to set it to subtract in order for the content aware tool to work. However, I find that's really difficult to work with, not like super duper, but it's just you kind of try to see around the edges. So what I usually do is set the mask to none, in which case the mask is still there, but it's having no effect on the video at this stage. And I find that just like I said works a lot better for me to make sure it's kind of in the right place. Okay, so there we go. So I'm just going to create that shape around the car. So if we go into the mask tool, mask properties here, you'll see you've got mask path. So we're on the first frame, by the way, as well. It's important, obviously, we begin at the start, and I'm going to just click on the sort of little timer symbol, which turns on keyframes. So now it's added a keyframe, and it will remember that this is here at that point. So then I'm going to skip a few frames forward. Now you'll see that you have these 4 points, and they're kind of filled in. Don't know how clearly you can tell that, but they're squares, but they're filled in. Whereas if I click off the shape, they become circles, which means they're not selected. Okay, so a filled in square there is selected. If I deselect the whole shape, it becomes a circle. And if I select a single point on the shape, you get a filled in square, but all the others are sort of hollowed out squares. So there's those kind of three shapes. But basically, if it's a hollowed out square, it won't move. Okay, whereas a filled in square will, as you can see. But what that means you can also do then is if you've got the general shape, is if you click the word mask path, it will automatically highlight all the squares. That means if I move one, they all move together, which can be quite useful sometimes because we can just kind of move the shape over the car. Okay, so basically we're going to need to now adjust this so that we cut out the car. You can see I'm not doing it every frame. I'm doing sort of jumping forward a few frames and then just checking the shape is sort of in the right place. Click the word mask path so that it highlights all the points, and then just move them along. And like I said, this actually becomes a little bit easier because as it moves down, the car's getting smaller. Okay, so again, all the points are still selected, and just move it over. Obviously, I don't want to create too big a hole in the background because that's more for the software to fill in, which means more noticeable perhaps. So what I'm going to do is I will over time just kind of bring that shape in a little bit as well. Okay, but so that's basically what I need to do. Just move forward a bit more, and like I said, just keep making sure, oops, click the word mask path so it highlights all the points, and just move the shape around. All right, so I'm going to zoom out. So the car is obviously going to drive off into the distance, and as you can see, I'm just going forward and marking those points in. So I'm just going to carry on doing that very quickly. I've done the masking across the whole car moving along. So you'll see as it moves, the mask is sort of following that quite closely. Did that miss? Did I just spot a mistake there? Nope, looks fine. I think it just, the video hadn't caught up then for a second. Great, okay, so you can see the mask is following the car along, and you can see I haven't really animated every single frame. You don't need to do that. You know, the software will obviously fill the movement in between. So as long as you've got it in generally the right place as you go along, that seems to work quite well. So the thing is, right now, remember the mask is set to none. So in other words, it's not really having any effect, and it just makes it's the easiest way to see where you're cutting something out. What I can do now is, so I'm going to set it to subtract. So the mask property, set to subtract, and you can see it basically cuts a hole out. So that's what it's done. Okay, so there we are. We've got a big hole in our video. Now, like I said, if this was a still image in Photoshop, you can cut a hole out in the background and you can use a content aware fill tool and it will just fill in the background. So it's a good way to paint things out very quickly. We're going to do exactly the same thing here. So I've got my content aware fill option panel here on the side. So you got all these panels. Now on your computer you may see something different. So in order to add or remove panels, you just go to window and there's a list of all your panels and you can sort of uncheck them and so on. So that you can see there's quite a lot there. There's not always space for everything. And not only that, but you can click a panel and it will collapse it down. So content aware fill, you can see is obviously ticked because it exists here already. I can click it to open it up, click it again to close it, and so on. So if we open that up, I've got my video selected there, and so you can see there are a few properties. Now with the fill method, I generally just use the object. You're welcome to try sort of some of the others. The edge blend seems to sort of blur the type of background that you'd expect to see, and I haven't really used the surface, so I can't comment on those too much, but object is the one that I would generally use because we're sort of replacing an object on the screen. The range is by default is tick to work area. So I mentioned earlier that even though we had a fade in and fade out, we didn't have to kind of cut out everything. We could just move our work area to the bits we wanted to apply to. But in this case, we're fine with that. And then apart from that, we can basically go to generate fill layer. Now, just before I do that, I will mention, you can see here it says create a reference frame. And so basically what you can do is, if you have something quite complicated to replace, click create reference frame. What it will do is it will open up a Photoshop file. Okay, so it's opened that one frame up as a Photoshop file, and you can see there's the cutout, and I can basically just paint in whatever I want here, and then I just press file save and close Photoshop, and it will use that painted in object to sort of replace whatever I want. And obviously in here you can see it moves along the road. That's not a good idea, but you can use it for things where the surface doesn't change as much. So say you've got like I don't know, a side of a van or something, and you want to kind of just cut out the writing on the side of the van, you can paint in what you want to be in its place and then apply that. But I will be honest, it doesn't always work out as well as you expect, and so sometimes you have to kind of go back to tracking the van or something instead. But you can try it like that. But we're not going to use that, so we're not going to create a reference frame. We're just going to get the software to generate the fill itself. So I'm going to press that, and oops, it has created a reference frame. Sorry, so what I'll do is while it's analyzing, I'm going to close that down for a second. Sorry, I forgot that it also creates that reference frame there, so I'm going to delete that. That was because I was showing you guys that before. So anyway, delete that, go back to my video. Like I said, we're not going to use a reference frame. We're going to go straight to generate fill layer. And what it'll do is, you can see there's the fill layer above. So, and it's an image sequence file. So in other words, every frame it's creating an image that is filling in the gaps. Okay, and that's what you're going to see, and that's going to play on top in a sense. So it's going to sort of cover up the gap. Now, depending on the type of replacement that you're doing, this could be quite quick or take a little bit longer. You can see here it's not too bad, it's just rendering out, but here's the first frame, so we can kind of see what that looks like, and it's not done a bad job at all. Now if I click off that as well, yeah, that looks great. Now one of the things actually as well with this, a lot of times I don't work at full resolution. I mean I will if I need to zoom in, but usually if I'm not, I might have it at half or lower, and by reducing the resolution it just means that it's a bit faster to kind of move your playhead around and so on. One of the things I noticed, however, if I go to half, okay, can you see it's kind of giving us these kind of edges that I don't know if you can see those little jagged edges that weren't there before. That has to do with the way it's and you can see they're still there. Might not be able to see them as well, but there is like a little area of a box, and that's because it's not playing at full resolution. So for some reason it's kind of skipping a bit, skipping a pixel, then adding the next one, and it's kind of generated this slight edge. So I would say when you are reviewing it, however, make sure you switch to full, because full is where you'll really get an idea of what this will look like. So full resolution is what we want here. And you can see as we play along, if you can tell, there's a slight wobble as it's kind of filling in that space. There we go. It seems to get better. It'd be interesting to see what it does once it gets to the shadows. It's not done too bad a job at all. And as we move along, so there is a slight variance around the edges sometimes, especially around shadows and so on. So you can see it doesn't always do a brilliant job, but it's not bad for something that only takes a few minutes to do. Okay, so I'll see if I can just sort of get this to play. So I've got my preview panel. See if we can get that to play along. Possibly not, is it? Just okay, so let's just scrub through instead. All right, but there we go. So like I said, there's a little bit there you can see as a box, but otherwise it's taking the car out. So you're welcome to give something like that a try, just to if you're looking to remove something, you're welcome to try it on any video you've got yourself. Yeah, it's good to kind of get an idea as well where the limitations are on that. Okay, thank you for watching.